Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to see how we can get the generator objects out of uh, an iterable class. So that's what we are going to see. Till now, we have been building generator objects out of generator functions. In this example, we are going to see a connection between class and the generator object. This example is a slight modification of the example that we had seen when we were trying to understand about iterator pattern. If you haven't watched that video, I would highly encourage you to go ahead and watch that, because it carries a lot of things that are relevant here. So employee record class is there. This class, or the object that gets initialized out of this class, becomes an iterable because this class has dunderwriter method defined in it. Now, if there is dunderwriter method in it defined in any class or object, or defined for any object, that object becomes an iterable. So what we are going to do is that in this dunderwriter method, we are going to have yield keyword in this. So till now, whatever functions that we have seen, generator functions that we have seen, they were independent functions, and then they were having yield keyword in its body. And if there is any function which has yield keyword in its body, that means that that function becomes the generator function. Here, this dunderwriter method is also behaving like a generator function because it has yield keyword in its body, which means if you invoke this function, it should return you a generator object. And once you start performing the loop, if you start looping using for loop, if you start looping over that generator object, this function will execute it, right? In the previous video, I have explained how the function execution happens when you start looping over the generator object. If you haven't watched that, I cannot stress enough, you should go ahead and watch it, because that's really a basic video on generators, and you may not be able to understand this completely if you haven't seen that video. So please go ahead and watch it before continuing. So let's see what we are doing here. We have this employee record object that gets that is of type employee record, and I'm passing this employee record object to this iter function. What is this iter function? This iter function is also explained in this series, probably second or third video of the series. Please go ahead and watch it. But if you don't know about it, let me tell you briefly. Iter function invokes the dunderwriter method of the object which is being passed to it. For example, here we are passing employee record. So we are passing an iterable. Iter function gets the iterator out of an iterable. It gets the iterator out of a callable. If there is a, so basically we have studied about two variations of iter function. I'm not going to go in details of it. For now, you can simply understand that iter function is going to give you the iterator out of an iterable. So here we are getting the same. We are building iterator, but here we are not calling it as iterator because it's returning generator object. What iter function would essentially do, it would invoke the dunderwriter method of the object being passed in it. And this dunderwriter method, because it is a generator function doesn't get executed once we invoke it. If we invoke it, it doesn't get executed. Instead, they return the generator object. They return a generator object, and using that generator object, we perform for loop. And when we execute our for loop, parallelly our function gets executed. So that's what I have explained in my previous video in more detail. Please go ahead and watch it. It will be helpful. So here we are not doing anything special. We are building this iterator. We are building this generator object. Let me call it as go, probably, and let me call this as go as well, and this as go as well. So we are getting the generator object. We are printing this generator object. Let's see. So if you see, it prints this is the generator object of, and that points to employee record iter method. So when you start looping, which means that at that point of time, this employee record dot iter method will get executed, right? How it fetches each and every element, it is already explained. So it is fine. Now this, because I have also explained that for loops that you write, it has, every for loop has a for loop machinery running behind it. So you can simply execute or look at that for loop machinery as well. This is how it would look. And if you execute it, it will give you the same output, except that this exception is coming because we are handling the exception, a stop iteration exception explicitly, and I am having a print a statement, explicit print a statement here. And uh, but this is handled by Python itself, so you don't see these things. So yeah, if you simply run for loop over the iterator, sorry, the employee record object, things would be pretty clean, because you will not be calling iter function usually. So let me comment this out as well, and this should give you the same result as well. So if you run it, you will see that it prints all the players, all the items in that list. So this still gets called, this function. I hope you understand why it is getting called, because under the hood, Python would execute iter function and pass the iterator, pass the employee record object to it, and that uh, iter function is going to return a generator object. And once generator object, and once we start looping with that generator object, the function will get executed, which is iter dunder iter function. And once it starts execution, we are going to see this print statement. So it only gets printed once we start looping. When iter function is called, it doesn't get printed. For example, okay, I'll show it to you. So let's say that we are calling this iter function. As I've said that, as I have already told you, iter function will invoke the dunder iter method of the corresponding object which has been passed. So this, you won't see this print statement right away, because it is the generator function. This will not get executed right away once on invocation. So let me show that. So yeah, so you see nothing is being printed, because though we are calling this iter method, this iter function, this should have got printed, but it is not. Okay, let me tell you one more thing. Let me comment this out, and let me return self. Actually this will give error, but let me return employee record, and I will have to implement this. And let's have a def render next, and we are going to return some item, let's say 0, and let's say next takes an index. But you don't have to worry what I'm writing right now, it is just to avoid error. But it will also have an iter function. So this is similar to what we have seen in the iterator pattern that I'm writing right now. So if we have this, I can simply return self. So employee record iterator, and it's going to have def, sorry, init as well. And let's say it takes the names, and we will be passing the self.employee underscore names. So yeah, it still complains. So we don't have now this function is not a generator function, which means it should get executed. That's the entire thing that I wanted to explain. So let's try to run and see if it throws any error. So yeah, it doesn't throw any error, so you can ignore this. This is from my pylans, so I can simply ignore. This should get away. So we are getting away. So this, if you see, we are still invoking this function, but this time this function is getting called. Why is this getting called? Because this is no longer a generator function now. When it was a generator function, it was not getting invoked right away. I hope I am able to make you understand this. So let me revert all the changes that I've done. let me remove this and bring it back. I can simply remove this. This is not required. If you didn't understand what I have written, what I had written about employee record iterator class that I just removed, you can simply go ahead and watch my iterator pattern video. You will understand what I have done. So now if there is an iter method, which is a generator object, if you run it, you will not get any printf statements because this function doesn't get executed. So with that, I hope I was able to make you understand about the about how you can get the generator object from a class, from an iterable class. Yeah, with that, if you have any doubts, please post it in the comments. I will get back to you. I will resolve those doubts. And with that, I'm going to see you in the next one.